Hello and welcome to another episode of Fellowship in Essential Oils. My name is Adam. I'm joined by Liz. How are you today, Liz?
I'm well, thank you, Adam.
And, in our podcast so far, we've explored some rather extravagant and rare essential oils. We've looked at Ravensara and Kunzia and pineapple myrtle. I'm really glad that we're coming back to basics today. We're going to look at lavender today.
Yeah, and I have to say, in some ways, it's got to be the hardest one to examine because there's so much to cover, isn't there, with lavender? So I'm really excited that I only had to do half the work for today and I can leave the rest for the masterclass if people want to come and study it later, because, we'll talk a bit about lavender today. We'll go quite deep, but I've kept lots back for our masterclass.
Yes, and we're going to let you know more about this live masterclass at the end of the episode, so keep listening for that. We'll have lots of details and the links below, of course. But with lavender, I was really grateful to explore lavender with so many different essential oils out there. It was just earlier today, I was putting some lavender in my diffuser and a little bit kind of spilled on my finger, and I'm just like, lavender is really nice. And I think sometimes we kind of forget about some of the basic oils because there are so many different options out there today.
And I think nice is a really good word for lavender, because if you're not careful, you can either dull it down or you can overexpress it. But in actual fact, it's just a very serene, tranquil, normal, makes you feel normal kind of oil, isn't it? It takes it back to center. It's not about the big picture of like explosive fireworks and stuff like some oils are. It's about coming back to, this is how I'm supposed to feel.
Very much so. Now, when we're talking about lavender, we discussed this in the brief beginning of pine last week. We were talking about the differences between the different pines. With lavenders, there are different species. I'd say probably English lavender and French lavender tend to be the most popular ones used in aromatherapy. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, no. I would say that probably Bulgarian lavender has probably overtaken now.
Okay.
Because that's a massive export, but I think that the statement is true. And when I first qualified, when I first started training, our first workshop was about really starting to understand the different feelings of a chemotype of an oil. And we did this tremendous experiment with 4 different lavender essential oils and about meditating with them and how they made you feel. And there was an extraordinary cross section between the different ways. And actually, people who've been watching over the period of weeks will know that I've been doing some work with Debbie Atterby. And we did a workshop recently together on lavender, and she bought the most beautiful Tasmanian lavender, which had no camphor in it at all. And it felt completely different to any other lavender. Of course, spike lavender is high in camphor, so it's harder to use. So whilst we understand the notion of what lavender will do, there's definitely nuances based on where it grew. Yeah.
I must admit, my primary source of lavender, what I work with, I called it English lavender, but it actually does come from Bulgaria. I guess when we're looking at Latin names, we're looking at lavandula angustifolia.
Yes.
Is that normally the Bulgarian? That's primarily what grows in Bulgaria, I believe.
Yes.
Or is grown in Bulgaria? Yeah, which is a beautiful lavender for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, lavender also, we were having a chat about this earlier as well. It kind of plays a bit of a role in a famous aromatherapy story of a French perfumer, I believe, whose last name Gatafossi, and that being a French name, I probably just butchered how I should be pronouncing that. But the story goes that he was a perfumer, his arms caught on fire, he got severe burns on his arms, and he popped it in lavender, and he realized, wow, look at how quickly the burns went away and how much they healed. And this is he wrote a paper on this, and this is where modern aromatherapy came from. Now, obviously, people had been using lavender for thousands and thousands of years, but lavender kind of stepped up and went, hey, it's a turning point in the history of aromatherapy at that point. Would you agree?
Yeah, so and the thing that we should be careful classifying him as a perfumer. He was a scientist. That paper was a scientific case study of how he had healed his arm. I mean, I always thought it was very strange when I learned it. Just so happens that he had concealed about his person a vat of lavender oil. But so he was in a workshop where there were lots of different things. And if you go right back to Roman writings, even ancient Grecian writings, they talk about lavender for burns, lavender for washing. So it wasn't like this huge, like the angels spoke to him. He had that knowledge in his head, but it was he who wrote the paper and explained how wonderful it is for wound healing. And now this is an area that's really being deeply researched for wound healing. And
Very much
saying,
so.
yeah, and I was just saying to you, wasn't I, Adam? I did very little homework for this week, which is not like me because I am the world's biggest SWAT. Incidentally, did you know kids don't say the word SWAT anymore, or Keno? And it's just a nerd, apparently, is what I say now, but I swap. But I thought, oh, no, I don't need to do that homework when you've just done that workshop. And yes, the universe went to tell you what, why don't we show you how much you don't need to do it? So when I got the Sunday roast out of the oven with all the roast potatoes, I tipped it right down my leg. Oh my God, it hurt so much. And luckily the fat was on top of the water that was keeping the beef moist. So the fat stuck to my trousers. I managed to get them out fast enough. Luckily for me, we've got a downstairs bathroom right next to the kitchen, but I was under the tap for a good half an hour, and then I was being sick and nearly passed out. I mean, it was really bad. And then I sat with a bag of peas in a wrap of a dishcloth for 3 hours with the lavender on, and it's still hot by the time I went to bed. And it was, well, they say if the burn's bigger than your hand, you should go to hospital, and it was about that much bigger. And I was like, I want to go to hospital. I'm going to try this out. And when I got to, well, I slept like a log, which is unbelievable considering it was all over my leg. And it's about that big this morning.
Wow.
I am astonished myself. Just, I mean, it's too delicate a place to show you. But anyway, there's hardly anything to see. But yesterday, it was very, very bad. And so, yeah, it was a reminder, don't be complacent about what we can do, really, because it was astonishing healing.
Very much. So can you just be really clear on exactly how you applied the, so you ran under just cold water for half an hour, and then how did you apply the lavender afterwards?
I put it on neat. I know you're not supposed to, but that's what I did. Because I don't understand why you would put a carrier oil on something that's very hot. To me, it just like makes it fry. So it is one of those oils that you can apply undiluted. The reason why you shouldn't do it is because you can cause skin sensitization. Or actually, I am quite sensitized to lavender because I get really bad headaches from working in a production company with so much lavender over the years. But a one-off situation like that where it's emergency, yes, you can do that. That's definitely the best way to treat a burn.
Very much so. And I've done that, little thing, not as dramatic as you, but yeah, little burns in the kitchen, the lavender straight on. I think, once off or without that dilution is going to be absolutely fine. But yeah, not something you'd want to be doing time and time again, applying lavender onto the skin or any oil in particular.
If I'd got some, I think if I'd got some, and I was crouching in the bath just sending people off to get things. I couldn't have gone hunting for stuff. But if I'd have known where to put my hands on the aloe vera gel, I'd have put it in aloe vera gel for obvious reasons. But I didn't, so it's just emergency. Yeah.
So lavender, of course, is beautiful for burns, whether it be these kind of burns or even sunburn. It can be really nice as well. It's great insect bites and taking the kind of soothing any type of skin irritation. But lavender is one of the ones that I use in my skincare routine on a weekly basis. Just adding a single drop to my moisturizer again on the face. Again, those floral oils are really good for the epidermis, the top layers of skin. So it's a beautiful one at night. Not only are you nourishing your skin, but as you breathe that in, that's going to help to settle down the central nervous system. And of course, lavender is renowned for being a good sleep oil. It's perfect for that as well.
Yeah, so I would have a comeback though about the skin. One of the reasons why lavender is so tremendous for the skin, and it's amazing for wound healing and all of those things, but one of the things that it does really, really well is it dries up sebum. So it's a tremendous oil to use if you have got really greasy skin, or if you've got acne or, anything like that. It's not really a boy's acne oil, but it is really good for that kind of greasy skin. because it tells the sebaceous glands, oh no, you don't need to make any more. So if you're the kind of person like me who takes baths a lot and puts lavender in, what you are going to see, remember, essential oils don't have side effects, they have many main effects. If you put lavender into your bath every night, or if you put it into your moisturizer every single day, what you're going to find is your skin dries out. Because your body, that's what you're asking your body to do. You're asking the sebaceous glands to stop doing what they're doing. So it is lovely if you've just like got a few days where it's really greasy or grimy or sore, as you say, sunburn or something like that. But yeah, better to kind of really work with your oils and say, okay, I'm not sleeping very well. For a while I'll use lavender, but then after a few days I'm going to try chamomile, or I'm going to try vetiver or something like that, so that you are not making your skin too dry, because especially if you've got something like eczema, it will dry out really fast.
So as well as using it for skincare and helping us get a good night's sleep, the other two ways I love to use lavender for sleep, which is probably one of the things it's famous for, is, popping it in the diffuser. And I love to pop it on the soles of my feet some nights as well. When it comes to popping in the diffuser, a lot of people, I think, with their bedtime rituals, they'll get into bed and then they'll start using their oils in which way. But a really great technique, if you think about it, humans are the only species on Earth that when the sun goes down, carries on as normal. We flick the lights on and we keep going. And so a lot of the time when we're trying to get to sleep, people struggle to sleep. We hear about how many people aren't sleeping, and they run, they go, they get to bed. Why can't they fall asleep? Because the body hasn't started to wind itself down. And so what I often recommend is don't put lavender in the diffuser and turn it on as you get into bed. At least half an hour beforehand. Let's start signaling to the central nervous system to calm the farm down, so that you're preparing the body for bed. And normally if you're getting into bed feeling a bit more drowsy, it's been found that does improve the quality of sleep throughout the night as well. So that's how I like to use lavender for sleep.
Yeah, I think, so I think that the magic number to know is that it's proven that essential oils, and they use lavender to prove it, take 19 minutes to go through the skin. So for example, if you have like a bath for 5 minutes, that was a waste of time. So if you can start putting your oils on about an hour before, and then like half an hour before, you've got a nice build up ready for. But over and above your essential oils, what's really important is good sleep hygiene. Getting the room quiet, turning off your screens, trying to have like a routine that you do every single night over and over. And we're very hot on sleep hygiene in our house. But yeah, just so that your brain starts to recognize, lavender says it's time to go to sleep. It's almost like a child's storybook, isn't it? And I think that's a really good way to use it. But I think if we're not careful, we'll just say that it's relaxing. But more important than lavender's relaxing is its anxiolytic properties. It's really anti-anxiety, it's antidepressant. So all of those things are important to switching the mind off, that it's calming you down, it's stopping you worrying about things, it's making you feeling a bit more hopeful, calming things and bringing you back to center. And so if you can start doing that as soon as you say it's time to, after you've had dinner, really, in our house, after you've had dinner, start thinking about how are we going to sleep, rather than lying in bed and going, I should go to sleep now. Yeah.
Now, talking about its anti-anxiety properties, obviously anxiety isn't something that just kind of jumps up when we get into bed. That can be used, we can have anxiety throughout the day as well. Lavender has always been kind of associated with a sleep oil, but what about using lavender during the day? Would you use it during the day? I've got it in the diffuser behind me now.
Yeah, I think if somebody feels anxious or can't let go, yeah, definitely. Like I say, it is sedative, but it's more about, I want to feel more like me. Just, I feel angry, lavender is a good one. I feel very worried about something, all of those things. But I think also, particularly with like mood generally, I tend to use lavender if it's a non-specific thing. So sometimes it'll be like somebody will say, oh, God, I'm really anxious, right? What are you worried about? Right, I'm worried about money. Okay, then that's a geranium thing. If I'm really worried about sex, right, that's a jasmine thing. I'm really feel anxious. What are you anxious about? I don't know. I've just got this really bad feeling something's going to happen. That's a lavender thing. General anxiety. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, we did say that we were going to find some other uses for lavender beyond what people know about sleep and skin and that kind of thing. My personal favorite for lavender and where it comes in very often is I, in the past, used to get really, really bad hay fever to the point where I'd be like red and crying and, you know, itchy back of the throat. And for those of you that don't get hay fever, imagine the roof of your mouth and the back of your throat being uncontrollably itchy, sneezing, and it always happens at the most awkward situations. I used to get hay fever attacks, and I would call them when I'm driving by myself. And I must look like this poor, here's this guy sitting in a car, tears streaming down his eyes. They probably think I'm listening to Celine Dion, but no, it's just hay fever. But the one thing, and I'd try all the different pharmaceutical things and they'd work a little bit, but a combination of lavender, lemon, and peppermint, and I use that each day throughout the spring, and I bring it back out whenever I feel an attack as well, and it pretty much eliminated my hay fever. So I absolutely love it. I talk to everyone about it, and I get on my little my hay fever unicorn and ride around and tell everyone about it every spring.
What a hay fever unicorn. Yeah, I really agree. And I have to say, I don't get really bad hay fever, but I really do recognise that feeling of like you're trying to lick the back of your throat, trying to stop it all the time. Yes. And actually, yeah, I use lavender, chamomile, melissa for me, because melissa is an antihistamine, and I'm not going to go into it deeply now, but there is a very strange antihistamine action with lavender that actually acts as an antihistamine in the brain, which is part of the reason why it helps you to sleep and stuff. And I'll talk about that in the masterclass. But yes, it is antihistamine. Yeah.
Talking about, I kind of went down a bit of PubMed searching on lavender essential oil as well, and you find a whole range of quality and questionable things in there and that type of thing. But there was some really interesting research that had been done on all different cognitive issues, maybe lavender helping with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, and so on. So just that regular use, maybe not necessarily daily, but regular use of lavender can just support the body in a whole range of different ways, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the perhaps the strongest, and sometimes you read these sentences in these trials and you think, I kind of knew that, and that's a bit boring. Why did you write that? But one of the most important things is that it's proven that regular use of lavender helps you to get to sleep faster. Well, that seems like a boring thing, but think about the fact that everybody experiences insomnia at some point in their lives. But certainly lavender in terms of things like neuroplasticity for memory, for spatial awareness, all of those things have been really deeply researched. It's really important oil for people who have Alzheimer's or dementia, not only because it stops them being so agitated, so worried or frightened, but also it helps their memory. It helps synaptic plasticity, so it helps to build new brain function, and also helps spatial awareness. So if somebody's got really early onset dementia, or I think specifically Alzheimer's, then it helps with spatial awareness, which is what goes when they start doing their wandering and they get disoriented. All of those things are a really good reason to just, you have all of this information in your head, but then, so that comes down to, so give somebody a hand massage. It's really banal when you come down and sit to it, but just giving somebody a hand massage in an old people's home has profound effects, and even more so. Certainly melissa was a massive area of research, but always it would say melissa was really good, lavender's better. Melissa and lavender together are tremendous. Yeah.
And I know, doTERRA, we have a technique that we teach our advocates called the Aroma Touch hand technique, and a lot of people have just been going into, retirement homes, elderly homes. And, a lot of those people don't get any sense of touch, and it can be a beautiful thing. So a lavender hand massage for anyone can be really great, but especially if you do have aging parents, if they are in a home or something like that, you can learn how to do it on the internet. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be anything special, but it can be really beneficial for that sense of touch. But bringing that lavender and maybe the Melissa in as well would be amazing.
Definitely, as long as you make sure your Melissa's not old, and so it's not going to sting their skin. But yes, the two together. Yeah. And I do think that over and above anything else that lavender teaches you, it's an oil of compassion, A lot of the times you will meet somebody who's in a different state to where you are. They might be more frightened, they might be more confused. But when you smell that aroma of lavender, it moves you into, it's almost like Mother Virgin Mary kind of space, that this is endless compassion, endless openness, healing, the nurse, the midwife, all of those things. We see lavender turning up in hospitals, and it's because it's that kind of nature.
Very much. One final thing I want to talk about from that practical point of view, talking about nanas, is, nanas used to put their good old little lavender satchels in the drawers to get rid of moths. It's actually a really effective thing. Putting, we may not all be nanas, but we can all get our cotton buds, put some lavender, and it is, really good for repelling insects and especially moths. So I said we'd come up with some other uses that you might not use lavender for. So let's all get our cotton buds and lavender and get them into the knickers drawer.
Yeah, and on the note of insects, because as you know, I will always end up in that place. If I got stung by a bee, that lavender would be what I put on. Yep. And I never go into a beehive without putting sticks of dried lavender into the smoker to tranquilize the bees when I open it as well, because they go really calm. Yeah.
So let's look at these deeper levels of lavender. And I know in my book that I wrote with my friend Vanessa Jean, Gifts of Essential Oils, we have a different kind of way of interpreting the energetics of lavender. She calls lavender the duvet of the aromatherapy kingdom, that it just kind of cradles you up and it surrounds you in love. I refer to it as the red wine of the aromatherapy kingdom. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know how after we have a couple of red wines, we get a bit more relaxed and a bit more, we're a bit more honest, we're a bit more open. That's kind of my analogy of how lavender can be worked with on a spiritual level, because it can really help us in several ways to be a bit more open. And I actually love to use lavender in any kind of meditation or working or blend for abundance. Now, obviously we have oils like we might think of orange or bergamot that are very much to do with, they bring the joy and the abundance and the growth and that type of thing. But a lot of the time we go, I want abundance. And the way I want abundance is I want that inheritance, or I want that job, or I want that lottery. And we get really, really narrow-minded. And what I find lavender being added into is just like, I'm open to abundance coming however it may come. And a lot of the time surrendering and trusting the universe. So it can actually be, in my eyes, a really powerful abundance oil.
Well, I would agree with that, from the point of view that if you are very worried about something and it's going over and over in your head, the chances are you are remanifesting it, aren't you? Because you are just thinking about it. And I've been there, I am one of the world's worst worriers. And so, just this idea of just going, something out there is looking after you. You are being cared for. Just relax and let something else take over, I think. In terms of red wine, I really can't drink, so I beat people up after red wine. So that's not mine. And neither is it the blanket, really, because I would say that was vetiver for me. I think I am going to say that the Virgin Mary is probably the best. And then remember, I'm not a Christian, but that kind of beautiful, sort of open-hearted compassion of just let me take care of you. Yeah.
Yeah. I also find lavender is a really good one. Again, going with the red wine analogy, after a few red wines, we become a bit more open and a bit more honest. Lavender is a really great one to either, anoint yourself in or to diffuse. When in relationships, we just need to be a bit more open. And sometimes, there's something we don't want to say to someone because maybe we're worried about hurting them. We don't want to cause a conflict or upset them or different things like that. I think lavender really allows us as such, it is such a spiritual oil to be truly open, honest, and authentic. And that's what we really want in relationships, is to feel comfortable being authentic and vulnerable. And I think lavender can facilitate that.
Yes, I can see how that's a thing. I also think about it, purple plants are sort of mercurial. They have that, and ones with silver leaves, mercurial. And Mercury rules communication, of course, but also the student teacher relationship of like, well, I always think of like being in a car trying to teach me to drive, You've got to be really, really careful what you've got to say here, And I think that it's kind of very good in those kind of situations. Like, I don't care how you think, how much this is like provoking you. You can't go there. You've got to stay calm. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. I love, one of the other things that I love about lavender is there's so many different things. I think it's when it comes to, there's our amethyst, which is our purple crystal, which is one of the very first crystals that most people buy. And lavender is kind of the 101 of aromatherapy, and they pair so beautifully together. And I find, for most people, if it's not the first oil or the first crystal they buy, it's one of the first. And it's almost as though when we find our amethyst and our lavender, the universe says to us, there's more to life than this rat race. That I don't want to keep running around and trying to keep up with everyone else and going from one thing to the next. I just want to stop. And I want to pause, and I just want to start thinking about what else there is to life. And this is why I find lavender is so great for the crown chakra, and actually for activating the crown chakra or energizing the crown chakra. People ask me, well, why would a relaxing crystal or a relaxing oil help to stimulate an energy center? Because how we connect with our crown chakra and our spirituality is not by doing more, it's by doing less. And I think both amethyst and lavender, especially when they're paired together, are a great gateway into spirituality, whatever that may be for us.
Yeah, and and actually going on this idea of like the first oil, the first crystal, I think also, once you move into that that sort of energetic field, what you're moving into is that it is healing opens. You suddenly I get that of, look what I did. I made that better. How did I make that better? And even if you don't like articulate it there is a curiosity in your brain of, can I do that again? Because it's quite a powerful thing, isn't it? I made that better myself, and even me today, I'm like, I quite want to look at my leg again, Look what I did. I could have spent 4 hours in A&E and I didn't. I trusted what I got to do. I worked the process and look what I did, So I think that idea, some people, a lot of people go through life thinking, have no perception of the fact that they might be able to heal in some way, and that's what the doctor does. Well, good, that is what the doctor does, but it doesn't have to do it all the time. And sometimes healing isn't just about your essential oils, it's about the person that sits there and listens. Or healing takes many forms, but until you've actually felt that movement of healing energy come through you, you have no perception of it. And I do think that lavender brings that through.
It's so funny, actually. We do live in a world where so much is telling us what we should do. Even Netflix tells us what we should watch, and Spotify tells us what we should listen to, and society is telling us what we should do. And I guess spirituality is that coming back to who we are, and lavender does relax us. So it really brings in that state of inner contemplation and just kind of going, okay, well, that's what the world's telling me to do. I'm not making that right or wrong, but how does that feel for me? And a lot of people don't actually get to check in with how it feels for them. And I think working with lavender is a really nice starting point to go, how do I feel and what do I want in this case?
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to move the conversation into a different space, if that's all right with you, because I think that one of the things that we talked earlier about how lavender is really good for sleep. And I think having compassion for the people that need sleep the most in the world is new mums. A lot of people will find their way to a lavender video and use lavender on your children to get them to sleep. I'm going to turn that upside down and say, no, we don't use essential oils on babies for that. And to help some new mums use lavender to go to sleep, if that's all right with you.
Please do. Yes.
So it's really important to remember that baby learns to smell even before she comes out, he or she comes out. I'm going to say she. And so after about 3 weeks of being born, baby can still discern the smell of its own mother's amniotic fluid over other mothers, which is astonishing if you think about it. And that really galvanizes how important it is that baby knows mom by what mom smells like. So if you go and you put loads of lavender in the nursery and say, go to sleep, baby will go, just can't smell it anymore. So we can use lavender, but we don't use it like that. So a really good way of doing it is to put 1 drop of lavender onto the breast pad and put it in your bra so that baby can smell a little bit of lavender only weekly when she's breastfeeding. And so then what's a really good idea is afterwards use that breast pad, put it in the cot, because then baby goes, I can smell mom, I can smell mom's boob, I can smell milk, and I can smell that lavender. And of course the lavender is really doing its job, but in a much milder way. So don't bath baby with lavender. Don't burn lavender around baby. Don't put lavender on baby's skin till around about 6 months, because the oils on their skin are not strong enough, so they don't metabolize it in the same way. But just this little trick of putting 1 drop on the bra pad and putting that in the cot, I think you'll find works really fast.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's definitely going to help out some young mums, or, we can help some mums in our lives for sure. One other thing about the smell of lavender that I want to share a little bit of a story or some experiences with is people often tell me, oh, I can't have lavender, it gives me headaches. Now, interestingly, I've heard different stats, but I thought, I wish I could remember I know his first name was Brian, but I can't remember. But he was a doctor that looked at, the adulteration of essential oils around the world. Brian Lawrence, I think it was. Yes, exactly. Fascinating, great guy, very entertaining guy to hear talk. But he was talking about 70% of what's sold as lavender around the world is not from a plant. It is far cheaper to make the aroma of lavender without farming it. You can make it in a laboratory and that type of thing as well. So I've had throughout my years, several people go, oh, I love some essential oils. I want to get a collection of essential oils, but I can't have lavender because it gives me a headache. And I have said, I totally appreciate and understand that. And sometimes, they do have a reaction to the plant as well. And that would kind of say, okay, lavender's not for you. But on many of the cases, I've said, here, I'm going to gift you a small bottle of lavender and what I know to be true lavender, real lavender. And for the first day, I just want you to open the lid and just kind of leave it open for a couple of minutes and then put the lid back on and see how you go. If you get a headache, stop. That's been fine. The next day, I'm like, okay, just smell it a little bit and see how you go. And that's been fine. And we've kind of bit by bit kind of exposed them to it. And wow, they haven't got a headache. So be really wary. If you have this belief that you are allergic to lavender, make sure that, again, you are actually working with lavender. I don't know about you, Liz, but I've smelled some bizarre liquids that are meant to be lavender that smell nothing like a lavender plant whatsoever type of thing. Do be mindful again of where you're getting your essential oils from, that you're actually getting something from the actual plant. You're going to get the healing properties that we've been talking about, but also on a spiritual level, you're going to get the chi or the prana that you're just not going to get from something that's synthesized in the laboratory.
Yes, I agree with that. But I do think that's a bit oversimplistic, because I can't use lavender very much because I have used it so much through my life that my body just goes no. So Mum's company used to make 140 different preparations, and I would be working in the manufacturing all day, every day for about 10 years. And I inhaled so much lavender now, my brain just goes, bleh.
Yeah,
I want it. But also, don't dismiss the effect of a negative memory association. Sometimes you can't articulate why somebody has a negative effect from an essential oil. Sometime, and I'm not saying this is all the explanation, but if you've got like a repressed memory of something that is related to somebody or something, or lavender could be like millions of chains down the story, but that lavender is association. One of the key ways that will happen is you will have a headache. You'll go, no.
Yep. No.
So yes, I agree about adulteration and about quality. In particular, use an essential oil, not a fragrance oil, if you can. If you want to use it for therapeutically, a fragrance oil will have no therapeutic properties whatsoever. But yeah, explore it. Well, if it gives me a headache, well, to me, I always just go, why would I want something that gives me a headache? End off. But if you are having a rich response to something, it's interesting to explore it.
Yeah, very much so, for sure. No, I know there's some people that probably had bad experiences with lavender, and I wonder if they've ever experienced true lavender.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely
encourage
true.
people, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So astrologically, you were saying Lavender Mercury for you?
Yeah.
Yep, which is the common one. I'm actually going to go with the ancient Greek following of anything with a purple flower is associated with Jupiter, and I find that it could also be a bit of a Jupiter oil in the way that it allows to, when we relax, when we surrender, it expands. It's very spiritual in its essence as well. So I like to associate lavender with Jupiter as well.
Yeah, I like that. Certainly although yes, on the spiritual side, but it wouldn't have a Jupiterian effect on the body. So like Jupiter would be to do with the liver. I can't imagine that it has that much of an effect on the liver. But in terms of like expansion of the thoughts, thinking about religion, spirituality, all of those things, yes.
Yeah.
The reason why I say about Mercury is purple flower, but and communication, of course, but it's about clarity of thought. So thinking about memory, thinking about cognition, thinking about anxiety, all of those things tend to be like Mercury is the pineal chakra, isn't it? And also throat chakra. So yeah, that's why I would pitch it that way. And of course, Mercury is about deception, being able, thinking about, when you're suspicious about things, being able to, if I'm suspicious about something, that makes me incredibly anxious. I really wonder what's going on behind me. So that kind of thinking about those kind of trickster things, worrying about what's going on in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you place lavender with the crown chakra?
Yes, and pineal.
Yeah, I would too. Yep.
But also the root chakra, because of this association with fear and feeling grounded and getting one's foundations in life sorted. Yeah,
that makes sense as well. Awesome. Now, shameless self-promotion. I think we're going to shamelessly self-promote the same thing this week, aren't we?
Yeah, and do you know what? Because I never even thought about it, so so I'm just going to leave you to do the shameless self-promotion this week.
Well, one of the things we've loved about doing this, I think this is only episode 13, but we've had some beautiful feedback from people throughout the different platforms where we're showing it on YouTube, on video, and the different podcasting platforms as well. People have lots of questions, and obviously we're having a natter we try for half an hour, and I don't think we've ever kept it under half an hour, but we natter along, and probably other people are like, could they expand on that? Or I'd like to ask a question about that. So we wanted to create an opportunity for people to do that. So what we're going to be doing, our first masterclass, live masterclass with Q&A, is going to be on the 27th of July, which is the final Thursday of this month. We're doing it at 7 p.m. London time, and we're going to put the links down below. We're just finalizing the last few details today, but that will be your opportunity to join us live. We're going to, Liz has been taunting you today and saying, I've got more to share with you. So you'll get to learn a little bit more there. You'll also be able to bring your questions we're going to talk about lavender and the other 3 oils that we'll talk about this month as well, and dive a little bit deeper into them. It'll basically be like a bit of a round table. Share stories, ask questions. We're going to share a little bit more and that type of thing. Now, if that time zone doesn't work for you, then everyone who registers for it, whether you attend live or not, will get the recording of that you'll be able to watch forevermore. So you can then, we understand one of the challenges of being, you know, I'm in the Middle East, sometimes I'm in Australia, Liz is in the UK, the Americans might be asleep, all those different types of things. We can't please everyone. So we wanted to make it accessible for everyone. So that's going to be an opportunity. So look for the links below and you can register for that masterclass.
Yeah, and so just the one thing that perhaps Adam didn't say is we're going to not just talk more deeply about the essential oils and ask any questions, but we'll be putting them into recipes for you as well, so that you can take away some ideas of how to use the oils. But it's very much kind of a cameras on, microphones on kind of thing, where it's a back and forth. We want to, you know, we're not going to plan too much what we're going to talk about. It's as much about you feeding us. What do you want to know? Or actually, if you've got something that you want to say about, do you know what, I use this oil and this happened, we want to hear all of that stuff. So it's a bringing together of knowledge.
And we would love you to disagree. You know, we obviously talk about chakras and astrology each week. If you want to put your case forward that lavender is more of a Venus oil, then hey, we can talk about that as well. And it's just creating that community will be absolutely, amazing. So we're really looking forward to that. So make sure you book your ticket for that so you don't miss out on a spot.
Beautiful.
Now,
is it my turn to choose the oil? Because I haven't.
It is your turn. You didn't plan.
No, I didn't plan. So I'm going to say one that's easy for me. Mandarin oil.
Beautiful. Awesome. Now I must ask, because I've actually worked with green mandarin, yellow mandarin, and red mandarin. Are we working with?
Show off.
I know. Look at me. So are you looking more at the red mandarin, the ripe mandarin, or should we dive into all three?
I think let's go into all three. I've used green and red, but I don't think they feel that different, to be honest.
Okay. Yep. Cool. We'll explore that next week.
Good.
Thank you very much for joining us on Fellowship in Essential Oils. Make sure you grab your ticket to our live masterclass that's happening on the 27th of July. It'll be a monthly event thereafter, but you definitely want to be there at the first one. Until next week, we'll talk to you then. Take care.
Bye-bye.